We're live. What's up, guys?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello,
Hey.
Vincent.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Yo. Hi, superstars.
Yes, indeed.
I haven't seen
Hey.
you in a while. How you been doing?
I'm losing hair. I think I'm balding. I never thought this would happen to me, but I think I'm finally balding. I'm gonna see what I can do. How much money it costs to not bald? I'll speak to Jay-Z's people, but yeah, I'm concerned. I'm a bit concerned. I was like, no, man, this is not the vibe.
So, guys, Nosipo has to leave us. Let's just get on with it. Welcome to the people who are watching us, and congratulations to all 4 of you for making it on today.
Yes.
It's lovely, but I'd like to send a particular congratulations to Nosipo, who has done tremendously well with Blood and Water. She's been topping the chart. It's amazing, man.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Unfortunately, she has to leave us in like 8 minutes, so we'll just give her a chance to tell us about. Maybe, Nosipo, let's start with what is your show about, and maybe proceed to tell us how does it feel as a woman director, and in particular as a Black woman director, to be topping the chart. What does it mean?
Okay, thank you. Hey, everyone. Yeah, so Blood and Water is a fictional story that depicts the exploits of a 16-year-old girl who engineers her own transfer to this prestigious high school in order to prove that the swim star at that particular school is actually her abducted sister who was abducted at birth. It's a mystery, it's drama, it's young adult, it's fun, it's all those things. And we've been so fortunate to have the show really resonate with South Africans, absolutely. Other African countries, I think Kenya and Nigeria reached #1. I think Morocco. We're really grateful, and around the world. And I think as a female director, as a storyteller, as a Black storyteller, for me, this is an incredible thing. I think we saw with Queen Sono the reach it had, and I think it's exciting to be able to add and contribute to that as well at this stage in a way that it's clearly impacting people. I think what it's telling us as filmmakers is that the world is hungry to hear new voices. I think the world is hungry to also see a new kind of narrative coming out of Africa. I think for a really long time, there's been specific kinds of narratives coming out. And I think to see that, see these kids living these crazy lives, rich people lives, which we know does exist in the country. I think it's really exciting to be able to show that version of the young adult narrative, and to be part of that. Hey, feels like walking in my purpose, man.
Beautiful, man. So just for the benefit of our viewers, the purpose of this is to first celebrate filmmakers on Netflix, but also to celebrate Africa Month. And this is happening with the courtesy of Gauteng Film Commission and the Gauteng Provincial Government Department of Arts and Culture. We're grateful for their support, for allowing us this platform so that we can have a conversation about these things. I also have Aquino Motoso, who's also been commissioned. It's a series in Nigeria. I believe that the series is not yet titled, but I also have Busisiwe Tintili, a dance drama called Diver, and you know Kagiso Lediga, a comedian, a man of, let me not say stuff. Some things we must keep friends.
I don't even know what that is. I don't even know where he was going there.
I was gonna say a man of many jokes.
But I got a dimple, huh?
I was about
A man of a dimple is what you wanted to say. Yeah.
Oh.
So, Kagiso, hold on. So, Kagiso did Queen's Sono, but I'll come back to you guys. First, I want to give attention again to Nosipo. The common question everyone is asking Nosipho is, how do you guys get hold of Netflix? How did it happen? How did it happen? I know that's the most obvious one.
Sorry.
Maybe tell your story. How did it happen with you guys?
Yeah, I would certainly love to speak to our experience because I don't know the general rule. So our specific experience is that we had finished, so by our, I mean Gambit Films. We had finished our debut feature film called Number 7 Data for Number 37, depending on what you want to call it, where you are. And we premiered at South by Southwest and then subsequently gotten US representation. They sent the film around to different studios, different companies, stateside, and at the time, Netflix, I guess, was here having conversations with people. At some point, they came across the film, and they must have liked it because I think it was like much later in the year. They made contact. Actually, it was in 2019. So the film premiered in 2018. I think it was over a year later that they made contact with us after having seen the film through our info account, actually, just kind of, which was strange. And they were like, hey, I don't know if you guys have a minute to talk to us or if you're interested, but like, you know, we're Netflix and we're trying to make original stories in Africa. I don't know if you're already doing stuff, but if you think you can spare us a minute, we'll be in town and we'd love to talk to you. We're like, yeah, we'll see what our calendar says. Oh, look, our calendar is open. Let's do it right now. Like, they were actually, really, the email did read something like that. It was very odd. We were like, okay, sure, we'll try to put you in. But it was, so from there, we had a conversation just about who we were. We shared some of our other work with them and shared some pictures that we had as fully fledged pictures, and some were just ideas at that stage, just to see if there was any synergy, which there was on one of them. At the time, it was really more of an idea than a full-on pitch, but we had an idea of what we wanted to be able to do with the show. And it seemed to fit in with their agenda as well and what they wanted to be able to achieve as one of the first few shows that we're going to put out in coming out of Africa, and specifically South Africa. So that was really the journey.
That sounds pretty chill, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, yes and no. Look, there was a lot of back and forth. I mean, I have to make the story short. There was a lot of back and forth. It wasn't like, oh, we've got ideas, guys, let's do this, you know.
Then you gave them your bank account. Then they said, you do e-wallets. Then you said, yes. Then they said, sweet, we want to cast. You said, here's a list. They said, we're looking at Insta. You said, sweet, all of those people, done.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm going to mute Kagiso, but don't, you know.
Sorry.
Just one more point before you leave. But let us know when you have to leave. But I'm going to
I have to leave now, but I can do one more point, yeah.
Yeah, so 2 questions, and you can just combine them. One is, how has it been working with Netflix, the ups and the downs? And the follow-up question is, what would you like people to take away with your show? You know?
Yeah. Okay. I will start with the second question. I think you know, with Blood and Water, it really depends. If you're a filmmaker, if you're an audience member, it really doesn't matter. I think I never try to preach. So this is a young adult show with some challenging themes for some people, and I think my hope is that conversations are had around it. I think the themes of identity are quite strong, but also at different levels. There's some themes of sexual freedom, all kinds of stuff. And I think having some, you know, conversations around that and what our identity as Africans is and how we want to be able to see ourselves in the world and taking up space in the world. I think we've seen something really interesting with this cast because it's such a diverse cast, and seeing how people really got excited for that, specifically our leads, and seeing female leads. I think that's something that people can take away, that, you know, it's a new era of storytelling and there's space for everyone. And I think for us to be able to really claim our spaces and be proud of the stories we want to tell. not conforming to what other people may necessarily think will work commercially. Right, so working with Netflix, how's it been? Great.
Is that
They're like, great. Yeah.
No, really. No. Let me put it this way very quickly. It really has. It's been an honor, first of all. I think it's been a privilege. I don't know about anyone else on this panel, but for me, when I started out, working and hoping to eventually make impact in this industry, my hope was always to be able to tell local stories, but and authentically as I possibly could, but not just for local audiences, to be able to reach the world and have a great impact in the industry generally as an African filmmaker. And when we're creating content, we usually have the hope that we can sell it afterwards, to different territories. But I think what this does and what it did for me was from the get-go with Netflix, that if it's a Netflix original, it will immediately, when they put it out, they don't put it out in one territory. It literally goes to 190 countries. And I think they have something like over 180 million subscribers around the world. So the immediate thing was you will reach everyone. Now, what we didn't expect, of course, is that we would resonate with everyone. We hoped for it, but it wasn't an expectation. But that knowledge that you have that much reach is something that is incredible. I think as a storyteller, it's something that you can't overlook that. And for me, that's been the best thing.
Can I just come in there and maybe explain why I wanted you to tell us about the ups and downs? Because the purpose of this is also to share and knowledge and empower other people. So we need to be very realistic about the reality of our industry. It can't just be great, and I'm sure I find it very difficult to even work with my partner. So I know it's not all smooth. What are the things that were difficult for you that shook you a little bit?
Okay, so I literally have 1 minute. I will have to jump off in 1 minute. So look, I think for like any new relationship, there were a lot of things of having to figure each other out, what they wanted to achieve and what we wanted to achieve, and having to find compromises here and there. I think also there was a lot because for them this was largely this is experimental for them right now. They're still figuring out what this territory is about, what we're about as South Africans, how the industry works here. And I think a lot of that came down to us also having to teach a little bit in terms of this is what's achievable, this is what we can do, whilst for them as well having to go, well, this is what we set out to do. So how do we find these, how do we find synergy in that way? I think one of the challenges working with Netflix, not particularly from a Netflix perspective, it's more from an industry perspective. I think people see the name Netflix and immediately start to think, okay, you secured the bag, so I can ask for the world now. In how I'm going to tell them, like if I'm going to be an actor, I'm asking for whatever. If I'm coming to, I think people had a lot of ideas of what it would mean. And a lot of us had to educate ourselves in the fact that, yes, it's Netflix, but it's still at early phases. And right now we're all still learning how to do this. And it doesn't mean that we have just like endless budgets, like any production, it's going to have its challenges and we have to work within certain constraints to achieve the quality we want to achieve. I can't go into more detail. I'm so sorry. I am about to be late and I still have to set up. I'm so sorry.
I'll meet you in the car. Also 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, shall we go?
All right.
Just make sure you have our drinks. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much, guys.
Sweet, bye.
Bye. So guys, I'm also going to take questions from our viewers. So it's not just about us and these questions from Gauteng Film Commission. But maybe before I go to our viewers, Lilicha, let me start with you. You were the first one to be commissioned by Netflix. It's not easy to be the first one. Tell us about that journey a little bit, man.
I mean, it was that we kind of also had a quite an ambitious idea. We were like the thing that we were trying to make. We kind of were set in our mind that we were going to make a spy show of a certain this type of spy show independently, and we were going to sell it around the world. Like Nosipo was saying, you know, so as a business, as Diprente, we kind of had decided since Catching Feelings that we will just kind of make these pieces of content that we can monetize around the world, and it doesn't have to kind of just be locked to South Africa. So that was the thing. And when we met Netflix, they kind of said, okay, this fits into our plan, let's go. And you know, there was a lot of, you know, you're asking about what the difficulties. So I would say that like Joburg, for instance, shooting in Joburg, just that logistically is that most of the sort of industry, if in inverted commas, that does all of this international stuff is in Cape Town. And whereas in Joburg, we do like South African television a lot, right? And we had to insist, because since Pure Monate days, I always insist on giving certain people an opportunity, and we either sink or swim. So it was one of those types of things. But also because our government comes with the DTI rebate and all of that type of stuff, it behooves us to kind of do those types of, to put people on and like young artisans on who can learn along, you know, in the process. So that was that, like 48 days in the middle of the coldest winter with a crew that, you know, where we were like, cool, let's go, we're gonna experiment. So that was, for me, that was a very tough thing. And I'm glad we pulled it off. Like, you know, when you have to touch wood, but it was like, holy crap, that was hard. Because it was almost like, you know, the idea when South Africans are doing the World Cup, you're like, this is the first time we're doing this thing, we gotta represent, because it was also on us that if the show flies, then it opens up the gate. You know, like this show and Blood and Water, they had to work to a large extent, because that working then becomes like every other, the rest of the shows, this becomes like a viable place to make Netflix shows, you know? And you know, and it's great because now I talk to every third producer that I speak to is talking to Netflix about a project. So they're now they're in the space in South Africa as much as DSTV and SABC and ETV and so on. So that for me, yeah, that I guess our charge was that. Our charge was like, cool, here you go. Let's, you know, swing. Let's see how African Netflix looks like. And also, as much as we wanted it to be a South African voice, we wanted also to make something that was also African in its idea. You know, it wasn't a show that just happens in South Africa or in Joburg. It's a show that has a African scope. And I think that was also one of the strengths, you know, the things that people resonated with in the world, in the diaspora, but also just generally in the world, because they had an idea of what Africa is. They watched this show and then they were like, God damn, you know? And we aim to do that with every piece of content, whether it's about Atteridgeville or about like a spy organization based in Joburg, but for Africa.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring you in, Akin, there. But before I do that, let me just read some of the questions that guys have sent in. Olisa Mbafa says, how does one approach Netflix for a film or a series proposal? Nontlantla says, why is there so many processes to get hold of or to submit to Netflix? Tato Muloi says, how does one approach Netflix? I think, Kafiso, you sort of attended to those questions, but let me ask you a specific question. How did it happen with you? When was the first meeting? Did it happen at a film festival, just like Nosipo? Did they come after you, or you went after them?
It happened in Johannesburg over drinks. But so I think the journey for us, it started with Catching Feelings. We had the film that it got acquired through a sales agent in LA again. It got sold to Netflix and it did well on the platform. But then that didn't mean that I had contact with Netflix per se. It just meant that I had a record, you know? They could look at the thing and be like, oh, this thing actually did well. And when we were talking, I wasn't coming in sort of from the bottom, you know? And then second to that is Catching Feelings again played in New York at a small festival in New York. And Loiso Gola's manager at the time was a British lady. She came there, watched the film, really loved it. And then at some point she worked at Netflix. And then when Netflix came to Joburg, she said to the team, you gotta meet these guys. Plus they made that movie, blah, blah, blah. And then we went and met them, had drinks. We told them about the show that we were gonna make. But whether they, not necessarily say we want you to make the show with us, we were like, we're making this show. they liked the show. I remember my partner Tamsin kept on telling me to just keep quiet and let them talk, because I was speaking like, yo man, I mean, we much respect to you guys, but I'm making this show, you know. And she's like, hey, shut up. And then there was also the part where even the bill, like that's where I had to do the thing, because the bill came and we were at a very expensive place with many of us around the table. Then she wanted to pay. I was like, hey, this is Netflix, they must pay. So, but it was a candid conversation about the piece of content that they liked. Like I think as Nosipo said, it fit into their agenda. The type of, I think what was cool with Queen Sona as a proposition is that it kind of encompassed Africa. You know, the narrative had like a continental view. So if they were going to be launching in Africa, it was a sweet way to start, you know? And that was that. We spoke. And then what was impressive though, after that meeting, was how fast everything went, you know? Like, it was like, essentially it was like, okay, would it be possible to do, and also the idea that they go from idea to, they pick up the whole show. They don't do pilots, you know, which is the thing that Netflix does. So the show is a pilot, I guess, as a whole, you know. And so the process from that point to actually be getting a room together and then start talking about pre-production was pretty quick. From September 2018, you know, I think that's when we met the first time. August, September 2018 is when we met the first time. And by Feb, we had been deep in the writing room. It had been like at least 3 or 4 months in the writing room and we also tried to be a little bit ahead, like from us, because once we kind of saw that there was an appetite and this thing is actually going to happen, whether contracts were like finalized or not, we as a business also went slightly at risk to say, let's get the room together, let's start talking about the idea, so that when we start engaging with Netflix, we also have a firmer idea of what the thing is, you know. And then, yeah, the rest, as they say, was a really harsh winter where we were out in Maraba Stad trying to recreate Nigeria. But that's a story for another day.
Let's talk to Akin. Very excited about that. Akin, how did it happen?
Well, I think similar to Nozipo and Kakiso. You know, Netflix had been, they'd been obviously Catching Feelings, Genevieve's film, Lionheart. So, you know, they're in the mix. So, at the point at which they were coming to meet creatives, in 2018, my film Via had been acquired by Array, and it was on Netflix. So definitely, like, and it did well. You know, we got a lot of notices with that release by Array. So when they came in, it was someone said, "Look, this is a person you should talk to," and they reached out and I responded, and we had a very casual meeting about what the kinds of things they were looking to do and to see where the synergy was. And then I went away, and with the team, we came back with certain ideas. And similar to Kahiso, September 2018. And then probably by February 2019, there was a good response to what we proposed. And then it continued from there. So I would say a lot of it it started with that, the what you've done before. Not that is the only way to do it, but that's the way in which it happened.
The calling card. I guess that's why they call it the calling card. It calls
the calling card. And also they had a vision for the continent. They had a vision for Nigeria, and obviously I have the stories to be told around the world. So the proposition was, can you propose something that could be done in Nigeria, and what could that look like? And that in itself was exciting to explore.
Yeah. So if you say they had a vision for Nigeria and for Africa, do you mind sharing with us what was that vision?
Well, I think you're seeing it playing out now. So it's not even about selling. It's about, I would say, what it is it's the kaleidoscope of what's possible. So in other words, for a long time, we labor under this, or we have, those of us who are old enough, where certain narrative tropes, I think Nozipo even spoke about it, are allowed. So Queen Sono, if you take Queen Sono 20 years ago, I remember a long time ago, I was at a meeting at a film festival, and we sat down. And as we're sitting down, the guy looks at our proposal. He says, "Oh, there's a black guy on the cover. I can't sell your movie. Meeting over." We hadn't even sat down. It's like we're sitting down. So that tells you about how people curate Africa. And that curation of Africa has been particular narratives. And I think the exciting thing about Netflix is the ability to say there's a kaleidoscope of stories. So we can have Queen Sono, we can have Blood and Water, we can have Busi Show, we can have, so that's the vision. The vision is that this continent, everybody has said it for years. We've got stories, we've got stories.
Yeah.
We've arrived at the point where there's a platform that can support those stories and the kaleidoscope of those stories. And I say that because even when we were pitching, I was encouraged. They said, well, what story do you really want to tell? And, you know, my project that we're doing is a story that I've had in my brain since I was 12 years old. And I've never pitched that story to anyone because I was like, well, no one is ever going to, they'll be like, what? No, give us this other narrative, or your money is tied to this kind of narrative. And I think the potential and the opportunity, we're all seeing it. Queen Sono landed beautifully. Blood and Water landed beautifully. We're not surprised because we know these stories, but it's just refreshing that there's a platform where you can see, and in fact, everybody responds. So it's not even like you're lying to people. It's like, well, you can see the response. So I would say that kaleidoscope and opportunity of stories is the vision.
Okay. Busisiwe, your show is up next, Jaiva. Maybe take us back. How did it happen to you guys? How did you get commissioned? And what's your story about so people can look forward to it?
Okay. Yeah, so we're the third original script to screen that's coming out of Africa. And really, you know, the process, how it happened for us was a little bit different because my experience is in television. I've done a feature film, I've done a couple feature films for TV as well and for cinema, but the bulk of my experience, 20 years, has been in TV. And so I think if you're a filmmaker, you get a chance sort of to interact with the outside world through film festivals, through your films traveling to other territories. But from what I found is in television, it has been very much territorial. So people watching television in America would only know American TV makers. People watching in Asia or Europe or Africa, you would sort of know your region, but you really wouldn't have an idea of who's doing work outside of that territory. And on top of that, there is never an opportunity to see other people's work like you could with film. So Netflix, for me, just having that platform that already connects the you know, TV globally is amazing. And so I think for me, what happened was, you know, my work is well known in South Africa, and, you know, a lot of my work has also traveled sort of in the African diaspora. But you just plug away, you know, and I think for me, I know you guys probably have the same experience of having worked in television and having to pitch over and over and over and over again to, you know, to TV executives who may or may not get your vision, who may or may not like your personality for whatever reason. So you, you know, just like being an actor, you kind of get used to rejection, and you have to develop a very thick skin. Otherwise, you know, you'd be like, F it, let me find something else to do, you know? So that's kind of where I had been over the past, you know, I'd gone from being a writer, then I became a director, and then a producer, started my own production company. But I've been plugging away, doing TV shows, producing shows. And when Netflix came along, for the first time, I tell you, people say, how did you get the skill? And I tell people, for the first time in my life, I didn't have to fight for this gig. Like, I didn't have to struggle. I didn't have to, do you know what I mean? And for me, it tells me something, that there's a time and a place. And when you do what you're meant to do and you do it well and you're passionate about it, the things that are meant for you will find you.
Yeah.
You know,
So
you won't have to.
So how did it happen with you?
So basically with me, I mean, last year I was producing a telenovela for a local broadcaster. So I was busy with that. I started getting phone calls for people who were developing stuff for Netflix who wanted me to work on the projects. And I was like, oh my God, it's Netflix. But I had just started this telenovela, which is a beast. So I had to make the decision, and I turned them down. And the first, producers approached me, I turned them down. Someone else approached me and I turned them down. And I thought, why am I turning down these Netflix shows, But I ended up turning them down. Eventually what happened last year around July, I get a phone call to say, yeah, the execs at Netflix keep hearing your name. So when projects are being proposed, your name keeps coming up as the storyteller who can tell great stories, And I think having those kind of agents who speak on your behalf also is a blessing. So they were like, no, they've heard your name so many times, they just want to talk to you directly now, because they're like, who's this woman who keeps popping up? So I had a phone call with them. And by that time, they had commissioned Queen Sono, they'd commissioned Blood and Water, and they were looking for a third series. And they kind of knew, I mean, they're very clear about what they want to do and how the shows fit together. So they kind of knew they wanted a youthful show. They knew they wanted a genre show around dance, and that was it. And so they basically were like, can you pitch something? If you have any ideas, can you pitch something around dance? We know we want this kind of genre. And can you give it to us in 2 days? And I'm like, what? So it was literally, it happened that fast. And like Akeem says, you do have ideas, that have been there. And so, so I pulled up things that that have been there. And then also, I love dance. I've always loved dance. And yeah, and I put together a story in 2 days, pitched it to them. And I thought, this is crazy. Like they're never going to take this. And then they were like, we love it. Let's make a show. And it literally happened like that. A month later, I was putting together my writing team and we were having our first brainstorms.
So this sounds like if they really want you, they'll find you. And also, I guess your work speaks for yourself,
That sounds like something that you're going to tell people who say, how do I get to Netflix? Hey, mama, if they really want you, they'll find you. That's because I get that question a lot, and I don't know how to answer the question. How do I get a hold of Netflix? I don't know how to answer that question. But I think you've just given me the answer. If they really want you, they'll find you.
I'll also add a few other ideas just for the benefit that I see there's a lot of young people, young filmmakers who are asking that question. So to summarize it, there's different ways of being or getting hold of Netflix. First, at least make something that will make people want to know who you are, that will cause some sort of an excitement. And I think that's very important. But the other thing is that, you got to keep just doing your job. If your work is hot, people will come after you. And that's the reality of our situation. But there's also, I don't think we should give up in trying to get hold of Netflix. I think if somebody doesn't find you, you must find that person. And I think a lot of people are always asking, so what's their number? And so on and so forth. I don't have their number. But one day what I did is that I just Googled their contacts. And I found their contacts online. And that's really it. It's just as simple as that. You can get Gran or Dorothy's contact. I don't think they'll be excited at me saying this, but because of the amount of emails that they're going to receive. But I think if you Google Ban from Netflix and Dorothy from Netflix, you should be able to find their emails. Otherwise, we can also ask the Gauteng Film Commission to help in facilitating that relationship. I think it's only fair. Akeem, we are on a lockdown moment. I believe that you were already shooting and you had to stop. How's that affected your story or you personally?
No, I think when the situation with the lockdown, safety is first. The safety of the cast and crew is first. So we paused, and we're early in production, so we paused because that's the most important thing. We're dealing with something that none of us.
We have an echo. I think, is there somebody listening to you who's near you or not?
Big brother.
No? Are you guys getting an echo? No. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, safety.
Oh, I hear it now.
The crew is priority, and the cast. So as everything was shutting down, we shut down, and I think that's the most important thing. And we we're working with partners, and as you can see in the world, everybody's trying to figure out what does the comeback look like, and how do we come out of it. But definitely the safety of the cast and crew is more important, and the project is important, and you don't want to compromise it anyway, and you don't want to compromise anyone's life in any way. So it was a very it made the most sense, life above all. So yeah.
Have you looked at the script again and decided to change a few things?
I might add a line. We might need to add a line in or two. No, I think that like both Nozipo, Kags and Busi have said, we're all creative people, so you're always thinking about it. You're always thinking about it on set. You're always trying to get better regardless of the situation. So but for us, we took the priority of the keeping everyone safe. That's the number one. Yeah.
You're in a similar situation, Busi, with that. How's it for you?
Yeah, we had started shooting. Yeah, we started shooting in February of this year, and we're shooting in Cape Town, and then we're gonna finish off in Durban, where the story's set. And then so we had to also we down tools in March when we started hearing the rumors that we might be going into lockdown. So it was quite something to literally sort of strike sets in the middle of shooting. I think we had gotten through around about 2 episodes by then. So everyone had to come home, and then also a lot of our cast is coming from Joburg or from Durban. So it was almost like it wasn't like a local shoot, because we sort of had all relocated to Cape Town to shoot there. So it was, but we handled it well. And my producing partners, Blue Eyes Africa, have been amazing in terms of the logistical side of everything. But it's been, the biggest thing you don't want to do is lose momentum when you've started something up. People have their creative juices flowing, and then suddenly you stop. And then us as well with the choreography. I mean, we have dancers we have professional dancers, and then we have actors who were taught, how to do a lot of the street dance. And so all of that training as well, you don't want to reset. So it's been a process of trying to keep people going. And we have like Zoom workout sessions and Zoom dance lessons. And we've been figuring it out as we go along. Yeah.
Talking about logistics, your show is based in Durban, but you're shooting it in Cape Town. How's that?
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, and I think it's partly because Cape Town has shot so many internationals there, and it's got the infrastructure. So like Nosipo said, people see Netflix and they think, oh, you're getting gazillions, and we're like, no, we're not getting what the Americans are getting. We're not getting those budgets. Also, when they're new in territories, it's the first. We're the first ones. And I remember even when they were talking about like when Stranger Things started in America, like they didn't get a big budget either in the first season, because you kind of have to prove that this is going to work, and so that's where we are. So we really have modest budgets, which we have to be still creative, and I think working locally has helped actually, because we've worked on basically very little money and figured out how to be creative as producers and directors and writers. So you kind of have to figure it out. So yeah, that was why the decision was made to shoot it in Cape Town for that reason. So yeah, we've just had to figure out, how do we cheat it? How do we make it look like Durban? Some things you can't cheat. Obviously, we have to go to the real place for that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Lidija, I know you also had to do some. You did actually quite a number of locations. How's that? Does that fit the budget? Maybe I should ask this direct question. I don't know if you guys are allowed to say what your budget is, and if you are not.
It's one of those. It's Netflix. They don't like to share the numbers out on the streets. It's a thing. Right here, I will not share the numbers. Sweet, you can have a show. What do you like to share? Numbers. Okay, we can't give you a show. Sorry. Yeah, but I mean, look, like it's as Busi said, you know, it's like a modest budget, but it is a notch above what you would get for television in South Africa. Well, and also with Queen Sono, it is as I said, it's quite an ambitious thing to do. So, you know, with the idea that you are kind of doing Africa, like the opening was in Zanzibar, and we basically, there's not, if you're shooting in Zanzibar, you either have to get crew from Kenya, but then you have to accommodate them, give them per diems or whatever, because there's no sort of Tanzanian crews on that level, you know? Or you basically have to fly everybody from Johannesburg to Zanzibar, which is what we did. It was, you know, grueling, but it is, I think I like to say that it's a bigger canvas, with a lot more paints, you know, a lot more oil paint to play with. So it's essentially, it's that. And when you look at the product, you're like, okay, cool. Where I had to do a church in another show before this, I might have had like 7 people and shot them really kind of, you know, carefully, whereas now I can sort of fill the church, or at least half fill the church, you know, or I can afford VFX and I can get like a colorist to work on the show proper, like it was a commercial film going to the cinema and so on and so forth. So that was, so the slightly bigger canvas was the thing. And I feel like what we have, as Busi was saying, is that we are used to that. We kind of have to make a plan all the time. You know very well, Vince, as like an independent, you're probably one of the few South Africans who've made a television show independently, right? And you know, you have to make a plan. And I feel like those things, I think that everybody, we've kind of come to realize that it was actually all helping. You know, we've learned quite a great deal of how to work within a small budget or with limited resources. So if as soon as you give us a little bit more, we can fly to the moon. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So just for the benefit of our viewers, I've just looked up on Google how much Netflix do for movies. So there's few amounts that are popping up. I think for African content, they have between about $400,000 to $500 or so per episode. And I just see one now for a movie. But anyway, you can look it up. But I think the lesson is also just, go to them and tell them how much your budget is. If you
there you go.
An opportunity to pitch to them. But I would say roughly, we are looking at around $450,000 per episode, at least from what I see here. It might be wrong, it might be more, it might be less, but it's definitely still a little bit more, rather way more than what you get for local production or with local broadcasters.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've done a 13-part series, like a sort of a comedy, a sitcomish drama thing. I won't mention for who, but a local broadcaster, which cost less than one episode of Queen Sono. So maybe that's the best way to say it in terms of scale,
Yeah.
And I don't own it. I don't own that thing that I did for that much. It is like all of that effort, and it's like sits somewhere there where it's like, you know, it's hard. But, you know, I think those experiences we learned a lot from.
So I'm just gonna ask if get a question from the viewers. So guys, please don't mind me if I'm looking at my phone. I'm just reading some of the questions that you guys are sending. So someone is asking, are you guys going to make a profit from Netflix budget? I guess, you know, we can. So did you make profits from the last season?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a short answer. Are you hoping to make some money?
I mean, it's one of those. Did you make? I mean, come on. I mean, I wouldn't be saying let's do this thing again where I do this thing for free. Global markets and everything. Come on. But I mean, it's not to say that not like I think that the idea is that Netflix is not making it rain like it's going crazy, but they are giving us the bigger canvas, and they also are compensating us fairly. So it's cool.
So Lalama Lefo says, who owns the content? All of your shows are commissioned, right, guys?
Yes.
And
yeah.
I assume that Netflix owns the content, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
with the commission, they own it. They own it. They pay you to produce it, and then they own the product. Whereas with the license, you're coming with your own product, which also means probably you're coming with some of your own funding from different sources, and then they might put in another portion of the funding. But then you can you own the product and can still sell it to other, you know, platforms and things.
Like your show, right, Vincent? Like your show is licensed to go.
Yeah. Somebody just asked me Vincent, how much did they pay for your show? So, you know, by contract, I can't tell you how much they paid for my show. But I think if you speak to distributors and you give them your show, they'll be able to tell you the numbers. They really are not a secret, guys. It's just that we have to honor our contract. In my contract is that I can't share these numbers. But if you speak to aggregators or distributors, they'll be able to share the numbers for you. So I believe that each product is different from one to the other. So, you know, I think probably Netflix has got, or any other person for that matter, they've got their own way of how they gauge how much the show is worth and if they need it or not. So that's my short answer to that. And somebody else okay, before we go to somebody else, Akeem, maybe let me just come back to you. You've shot a few times in Nigeria, but you're not based in Nigeria. You are based here in Joburg. Logistically, how is that working? And of course, because you from Nigeria, that must be exciting to go back again to go shoot. I know you and Gabelo did a show there, and I actually haven't asked you how did that go.
The Ghost in the House of Truth is the name of that project. I've always seen myself as a storyteller, so it didn't really matter, you know, where you are in the world. Kahiso was talking about Zanzibar as well. You know, we shot in Zanzibar. So for me, as far back as 2008, I've been shooting in Nigeria. I did a documentary on Wale Soyinka in 2008. So from 2008, like I said, when you think about how you want to be or what kind of filmmaker you want to be, I never wanted to be somebody who's like, oh, this is we need to be able to, you know, but you got to start closer to where you know. So from 2008, really been shooting in Nigeria, always been fascinated with the industry there, always excited about Nollywood and what Nollywood has meant to the world, and wanting to know those filmmakers and wanting to contribute where it was possible. So what's that, 12 years? So for 12 years, going back whenever the opportunity arose to do projects there. And I guess meeting partners, so people like Ego Boyo, who produced a hotel called Memory, which we shot in Cape Town, Zanzibar, and Lagos. Ego Boyo also produced The Ghost in the House of Truth, which we shot in Lagos. The film you mentioned, Cabello shot, which stars Kate Henshaw, co-produced by Kemi Lala. So I think when you get to the opportunity that Netflix gave us, is that we have been working there, but this is a different platform, and this is the scale is bigger. So in a sense, it's like all that stuff was preparation for this particular moment. And I think it's important to the people who are listening and asking the questions, and I think we've all kind of said it in a way, but if I can be explicit with it, is that if you're committed to what it is you're doing, you have to keep on doing it. And at some point, we hope somebody may or may not pick you up. But if that's what you're in it for, then that's something else. If you're committed to storytelling and trying to do it as best as you can, it'll come to you. I mean, Busi, I think you said like, it'll come to you. So I didn't go, I wasn't, in 2008, when the opportunity arose to make the documentary on Wole Soyinka, I'm not like, oh yeah, 12 years from now, this is like, whoa, I can go make a documentary on this very important African figure. The Ghost in the House of Truth with producer Ego Boyo. Hey, there's an opportunity to do something here. Kabelo Tate from South Africa, there's an opportunity to do something here. The actors that we worked with in Lagos, Kate Henshaw, again, Kemi Lala, we're all interested in trying to tell these stories. And ultimately, when this opportunity comes, obviously because the microphone is much louder, the megaphone is louder, it looks like it's the first time you were there, when actually that experience now helps you better this product. But also with Netflix, you get a different experience. And for me, that experience, this opportunity has been really a learning one, and a great learning lesson as well, because you keep on learning. And as everybody has said, we all try to patch the things together, and it's refreshing on some level. Kagiso said, well, you're shooting the thing, but actually, I can dream a little bit bigger. I can dream a little bit more about what it is. But that doesn't happen if you haven't done the work. So, and the beauty about the beauty about it all, that for me, is that a lot of the Nigerian audience responds so positively to the South African films. So you get there and you would, Vaya was very well received there. Vincent, you and I have been out there. So this dialogue between filmmakers for me is really important. And I just happy to be part of that kind of, happy to be part of it.
Just to echo what you are saying, I shot, we produced a documentary in Namibia, House of My People, which did very well. We are producing another one in Botswana at the moment. But what I've learned with working in another country is that you always also need a base of some sort. You need to find relationships with people on the ground. At least that's how we've done it. We've always had an associate producer who's based there, who knows the corners and the streets and the culture, and basically knows people. So you always need somebody on the ground that will help you. But yes, there is no limit in where you can shoot and how you can shoot. I think we're living in a very connected world at the moment. We should spread our wings. Kagiso, there's a few questions for you from Tabang Petla, who says, Kagiso, was the idea to make Queen Sono completely a commercial series without digging too deep into the political issues it touches on? The unit is fictional, but was there any attempt showing how an actual South African spy lives or works, or was it all in the realm of creative license?
Well, I mean, it's both, because I mean, there is we're not trying to be like, we're not making a documentary about a South African struggle hero or anything like that. So that's completely fictional. But we kind of drawing on those characters like Chris Hani and Winnie Mandela to kind of go, to tell the history of South Africa, to tell that narrative. And in terms of like a spy, we wanted like quite a high-tech sort of crazy, James Bond level type of spy organization at some point. And then we talked about maybe can we get something more grounded, but we spies don't work like how James Bond and Mission Impossible works, right? Spies are like more closer to John le Carre. It's a very quiet world. It's people waiting around for, and that wasn't the type of story we wanted to make. We wanted to make that high octane, Mission Impossible type of spy, but I'll try to ground it as well, but also not too much that we are now looking at this kind of realistic portrayal. We wanted to have that fun, that adventure. We wanted to make what we call, when I was growing up, a steering, So this thing here, yeah, it was the very big, the crux of it for me. It was very important to have an African female steering, and that was what the audiences seem to be grateful for across the world. The idea that this character that's usually played by a white male was actually this African female, and then going around kicking ass, finding the truth, and so on and so forth.
There's actually a follow-up question to that. That's the real name, but it's Charles Thing saying, Kagiso Lidiga, question directed to you. Coming from a trained background in acting, please explain, as I'm curious, why did you cast that lady, forgot the name, I suppose she's talking about Pearl, as the lead in a action movie? Was it Foxy Brown vibes course? I did not get it. Was it the numbers she has, or as a following?
Oh, that sounds like more like a criticism, but okay, I'm game. I mean, me, I'll go there with you, mama. I mean, like also the video. So one of the key ingredients that got us the show was a video that Pearl came with, where she was acting in Scorpion King. I like to say it's like Scorpion King '89, because it was one of those like, it's like a straight to video Universal Pictures thing that she was doing. And in this video, she's really kicking ass. She's got the stick. She's playing some other, which was a training video. And we got really excited. I was like, oh my God, this is really, really dope. And when we showed that to Netflix, because of how polished it was and everything, they got excited. They were like, oh, wow, we can do this type of thing in Africa. Then let's do it. And the what do you call it? The stunt team, like, so Graham Powell was like this sort of, he does all of these American movies when they come to Cape Town. He then, when I spoke to him, I actually also expected some other white guy, because I was like, Graham Powell doing this kind of level of stunting, must be some white guy. Then it turned out to be a braino. We riffed. He had been, he had kind of experienced some of our work, and it was really exciting. And he was raving about Pearl as well, the experience of working with Pearl, where they ended up giving her the stunt cap, which you never get, so it was really exciting that. And then there's like this lady's question, I'm assuming it's a lady because it sounded, I think you said a lady.
It's a lady.
Yeah, so and then there's been those things where they're like, this lady, how can could you not even get an actor? And then, but it's always when I see that question, you look at the thing, it'll say Pirano or Bloemfontein, and then I'm like, okay, I guess in Pirano and Bloemfontein, they don't really consider what Pearl does as acting. And then I've spoken to, thanks to doing like Queen Sono, being on Netflix, I've then had access to like international people, some, Academy Award nominees and all of that kind of stuff. And then what they say to me is that you could do better with this, you could do better with that, but your lead, that's where the magic is. Your lead is the magic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say Pirano, Sisonke Baba, we'll go together. I'll give you my Tuetwe babes, but that lead is gonna be moving those people across the world as long as they allow us to do it, and because it's working, And I feel like also, I never wanted to kind of be like defending the actress or whatever, but I feel that because Pearl has like a personality that is attached to, when people watch, they don't go, oh, that's Queen Sono. A lot of the time, South Africans, they go, that's Pearl. That's Pearl who twerks, that's Pearl who does whatever. They don't kind of give her credit for her work. And she really works hard. I mean, I'm not gonna say she's the greatest actor in the world, but she goes in, she puts in, and she delivers, And the audience, the global audience will tell you, tell Brazilians, they don't know that she's got 2.3 million people and she twerks and she does whatever shows, MTV, whatever that show is called, Chillas. They don't know. They don't have this. The global audience, they don't have this particular idea that we have. And I think that maybe for some South Africans, not all, that becomes the cloud. You know, they can't see beyond that. They just see pearl. You know, it's like, you know, it's like if yeah, it's one of those. And you can't blame them because that's their conditioning.
Yeah, and also you can't quantify this thing. You can't quantify this thing called star quality. You know, that it factor. Like I think you either have it or you don't have it. You know, you could have gone to acting school and been, you know, and been in theater for 100 years, but put a camera on you and it just doesn't happen. And then you find somebody who's fresh off the street who comes in for an audition and they just sparkle. You know, they just sparkle on the camera. And I think Pearl has that, you know, she really has that star quality. She's magical to watch on screen. When you see her on screen, you don't want to take your eyes off of her. And that's something, so I think, yeah,
and it's also quite, what's interesting is that, I mean, what I love is that people are engaging with the content. If some people say, I watched it twice, guys, and I'm not convinced. I'm like, watched it twice, baby. That's all we want to hear.
Yeah.
I watched it twice. I'm like, you watched it twice? Like, that's unbelievable, you know? But yeah.
I think what we know as filmmakers is that, of course, we're not going to please everyone. There'll be other people that would like your stuff and others won't like your stuff. But you know, it's your vision and you stick to it. And you try and satisfy your targeted audience. And I think that's important for young filmmakers to know that.
That's very important, yeah.
But you want to tell. But I'd like to ask this, Busi, maybe I jump onto you there. The pros and cons of working with Netflix. You think about that? Do they tell you what style you must have on board, what kind of a person, the look, and the feel of and the tone of your product? How's that relationship in terms of creativity and even editorial?
Look, in terms of editorial and creative, so I'm the showrunner of the show, so I'm overseeing, you know, every single aspect of the creative. And I think they really are a partner in the true sense that they don't just give you the money and then say, go off and make the thing. From day one, you know, the executives who are working on the show with us, Dorothy, who's the lead executive, head of creative, and Felipe, you know, they really have been hands-on in a way that, like, you know, you rarely see that in television. I think as a creative, I know personally, I'm always a little bit skeptical of TV execs or execs of any kind, you know, because I know that they're coming from a business standpoint and, you know, they have got so many things that they have to fulfill. You know, audience and what and how do you get the audience, how do you get the numbers and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, it is a business. But I think, you know, as a creative, your mandate is always to make the best story possible, you know. So I think because of that, I kind of was like a little weary, like, oh my gosh, are these people gonna interfere and try to take over the story? But it actually was the opposite. Like they have been so supportive since day one and have really said, this is your story and we want to help you make it the best it can be. And so they give notes, you know, every draft of the script, from outlines to the script drafts, they would really give thoughtful, insightful notes, very, very intelligent, insightful notes that actually help the story to be better.
Yeah.
And they also interrogate too. You know, they interrogate and they push back and they say, you know, why are you going in this direction, or this doesn't make sense? And you need that. You know, I think if you're sitting in a vacuum and thinking you're a genius and everything you come up with is genius, you actually are sabotaging yourself. Because if you don't have that constructive criticism, if you don't have someone pushing back and making you dig deeper, you'll just end up doing sort of surface work, you know? So I think that's been really amazing to have that feedback. And some things I wouldn't agree with, and, you know, so it's been a discussion along the way of interrogating.
I'll ask a particular question, which is maybe if you can give us an insight. I'll come to you, Akin, there. an insight of what went through a process of picking your lead. I know it's not out there, but we've got a promo out on YouTube. We've seen it. So maybe if you can tell us a little bit about that.
I think with our lead, I was myself and the directing team, we were very, we knew we wanted to get unknowns, like in the sense of we didn't want, because of the fact that it's a dance genre and it's youth. And so we wanted to find people who are not attached to a soapy or not attached to something where they've already been typecast, so that they could just be seen as this character. So we literally did auditions around the country. And we did about, 4 or 5 rounds of auditions, and we found amazing dancers. We found other actors, but we still hadn't found our lead. And we were getting to the point where we had to make a decision, and we hadn't found her, So I think at that point it was like, what do we do? So we decided with the casting, let's start again. Like, let's basically start from zero. And, we've been using traditional casting, and sometimes that's where you have to get creative. And we were like, you know what, let's literally go to every single school, every theater group, every, dance crew or whatever, and just look at unconventional ways rather than the traditional sort of going through agents and stuff. And so in the end, we ended up finding a lot of the bulk, the core people that way. And then of course we have your seasoned actors there as well. But yeah, for that core crew, that core group of young ladies and men, we really felt, having some fresh faces would give it a sense of authenticity as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we found her, she was just magical.
Nice one. So guys, just for those of you who are watching, so these guys are filmmakers. They're not distributors, and they don't work for Netflix. I see a lot of questions has to do with Netflix, but they sharing their knowledge as and how they've done their contracts with Netflix and how so they are basically personal stories. They are not expert. So I see there, you are saying, how do I pitch for a project for Netflix? I don't know if they can tell you how to pitch for your project for Netflix. But however, they've shared their stories, how they did it. They pitched their own stories in their second. I don't know if you were listening. Le Falimang and the Sufa, with such great platforms for distribution like Netflix, does this mean cinema will soon be phased out? I think that's an interesting question, guys. That tackle it. So with more streaming services coming on board, is this the end of cinema?
I don't believe so. I mean, I think you'll agree with me, if not believing so. I think there's movies that are gonna be going to cinema that we're gonna go to cinema for. Like, I definitely want to go to watch Christopher Nolan's Tenet at the cinema. But then there's other movies that are, like Roma. Like, there was no way you didn't want to see that movie at the cinema. The sound design, the spectacle. But then there's other movies that, yeah, I'm gonna watch at home because I can watch them at home, and they don't need to have that cinema experience. I think it's this Netflix has given many a lot of filmmakers opportunity to reach an audience, because not all movies are going to succeed at the cinema. Case in point was Catching Feelings. When it came out in South Africa, it came out at the same time as Black Panther. And if I was a guy, Justin J, going to the cinema and I saw Catching Feelings, 90 rand, Black Panther, 90 rand. I mean, but then Catching Feelings went onto this platform, and it did incredibly well, because at some, you thought it was dead, and then it goes onto this thing, and it goes around the world, and people discover it, and it's and it's a great film to watch on the couch in your house, So I think that for those films, I think what are you making? I think that there's movies that are definitely going to do well at cinema.
We have lots of questions, so I'm just going to share them again to all of you guys, unless if you really want to answer that same question that Kagiso has answered. So just for the sake of time, we got about 30 minutes. 30 minutes left, and we've got got at least about 15 questions that are lined up. So we can please try to be as short as possible. Akeem, this one you might want to take because I know you've worked with all the broadcasters. Kiamokgetse Malefo is asking, besides distribution, how different is Netflix from MultiChoice and SABC?
That's look, I think that you have to first of all look at what it is we're doing. I have worked with them all, and I would say everyone had each show. You know, the last SABC show we worked on was A Place Called Home, which is like a long time ago. And the way I look at it all, it's always about what's the story you're trying to tell. And what I say about Netflix is to echo what Kagiso Nozipo said it, and Busia said it as well, is this idea of you're allowed to dream. The idea, like we're all in the same idea. So I can't speak for what, I haven't worked with the broadcasters of late, but at the time when A Place Called Home was made, SABC was interested in looking at other aspects of South Africa. So they were interested in not so much the glam, but like, well, what's happening in the streets? And A Place Called Home was the kind of show they wanted. And that's the kind of show that we as a company at the time were interested in making. So they facilitated that dream in a way that even paved the road for Avaya to exist. And then obviously Via, you know, has done very well. So I can only look at a project for project, but in terms of Netflix, I have to say that, you know, my story is about a god who comes back and is reincarnated, trying to find out trying to take revenge. So it's set in the world of African mythology and Yoruba mythology, and a lot of the like I say, I've had this idea since I was 12 years old, and I've never felt that I could tell anybody, because I always felt like people would say to me, well, who's going to fund that? And so for Netflix to not only say, well, what do you want to, what are your ideas? And like everyone has said, it's not like, well, maybe Busi might be separate, but it's not like, here's the idea and let's go. It's here's the idea and let's talk it through. Let's tease it out. What does it mean? What are the possibilities? And I found that, I found that so affirming and so positive, because I feel like I have a partner that not only is allowing me to realize a dream, but it's not also like Busi. It's not like, hey, here it is, go. It's how do we help you? How do we help everyone make sure that this is the best that it can be to bring to an international audience? And for me, that's just, it's like, I can't, you have no idea. And I guess because, when the show comes out, eventually we can talk more about it, but for them to commit to do this show and the kind of cast that we put together, the top names, we're working with a casting director who's also co-producer, Kemi Lala, the names, Kate Henshaw, Ade Laoye, Richard Moffett Damijo. I mean, as an 8-year-old kid, I used to watch Richard on television growing up. And to have Richard in a TV series that I used to dream about is only made possible because of the opportunity and the time that we're in. Joke Silva, all these are Nigerian icons, Ireti Doyle, Bimbo Akintola, people that people get excited about, Kende Bankole. So for me, it's a project thing. It's not about who is better and whatever. I've been fortunate that whatever the project, the person seems to want the project at the time at which it makes sense. And in this project is so personal and so affirming and what they've done and what I've learned in terms of, all three of us and Nozipo and all the showrunners of our show. So you're encouraged to think differently. What does it all mean? You can bring other directors in, guys like CJ Obasi, Daniel. These are directors that I've liked their films. Their films, I've admired them from afar. And here's an opportunity for them to also direct. Actors that you watch their films and you say, hey, it'll be great if you could come play. And Netflix has created this opportunity for this project, that if I go back and tell that 12-year-old, one day when you're 46, you're going to be making this thing. it's just you couldn't make it up.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, another thing is, of course, the budget is better than working with the SABC. But also, I think it's important to say, while we are excited and grateful to have Netflix, this is only the beginning. They are one of many streaming services that are exploring the continent. Netflix happens to be ahead of the curve, but you start having HBO, who's now co-producing with Mnet. They did Trekkers, and they also did a co-production with a German broadcaster. And you have Jamil series, which is coming up as well, where he's doing it with Canal Plus and Mnet and Showmax. And by the way, we also have streaming services like Showmax as well. So while you might be thinking that or excited about Netflix, they are not the only ones. There's other ways that you can find partners and platforms. But of course, we want to get onto Netflix because of the distribution footprint that they have. 180 million viewers. They've got a potential of reaching those people, which is great. But if you want to make your film, you want to make your film. So put together partners, and it's happening. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to working with different streaming services. And the more alternative services we have, the better for the industry, the better for the crews, the better for better budgets, and so on and so forth. And also, because I'm saying this, somebody says, is there a template for Netflix stories? Busisi, would you want to take that one?
No, short answer, no, there's no template at all. Yeah, the sky is as big as what your imagination is. And they really are looking for all kinds of stories. And I agree with you, Vincent. I just have to say, I agree with you. And I just have to say, as an African and as a pro-Black African, I don't think we should ever look at, behemoth companies coming into Africa and thinking that that they're going to save us, from all our troubles, and then that's the end of the story, and then we're in paradise forever. That should only be inspiration for us to do our own stuff as well. We've got so much genius on this continent, not just in terms of creativity, but in terms of technology, in terms of innovation. We have young Africans inventing things. And so there is absolutely no reason why we cannot build our own platforms, why we cannot come together as Africans and collaborate on projects. We've got a lot of very rich Africans as well on the continent. And really, the future is digital. And if you're a smart person and you're a smart entrepreneur, you would be investing in digital content, because that's really where media is going. And we see it today, with sort of the death of print, even TV's changing, film is changing. So I think the sky's the limit, and Netflix is so inspiring. They were the first, but they definitely are not going to be the last. And as Africans, we have to take ownership of our destiny and also get in the game.
Yeah, for sure. So guys, you're receiving a lot of love on YouTube. A lot of people are bigging you up, but I'm just not going to read those because I want to get through to the question. Lidutu is asking, what are your views on somewhat conflicting objectives, making authentically South African stories versus Netflix desire to be universally appealing?
I think I always have that's my favorite question. I feel like the more specific the thing, the more universal it can be as well. I made a film called Matwetwe a few months ago, and it's one of the things I really love that story because it was really not about, it wasn't about a South African, it wasn't about it was about Atteridgeville, and the people spoke that way, and it was very much purely about that place. And I watched that film with Americans in Texas, and they all laughed at the same places where I was nervous, and then it was a comedy. They got all the things, and I was like, okay. that's great. Phew. And then I watched it again another day, and then they left it even bigger room because people had told people to come watch it, and it was a bigger room. Then I watched it in Europe, in Rotterdam, and it was the same reaction. Then I watched it in South Korea. The people don't laugh there because I think it's not the culture to kind of laugh in the thing. But then at the end, they all clapped, and then the Q&A was as long, or if not longer than the film, and then they all expressed the same kind of emotional kind of touches as everybody else, and it was just purely a coming of age story about two kids in Atteridgeville. So I watch like a show from Norway on Netflix, and I go, hey, cool. I mean, I don't, it's subtitled, it's a whole other dark detective story, but I can relate, or it resonates because the themes are universal. So I don't think there's anything like that. I think it's important to kind of tell your story truthfully, the thing that you want to make, commit to your story, commit to your vision, and the more truth it is, the more human truths there are in it, the more it will resonate with humans.
Shout out to, hey, Fulo is Fulo Opiemi in Nigeria. I say shout out, thanks for a great conversation. I'm only reading this one because he's saying shout out to me, guys, and not you.
To you.
Yeah, we see how you roll, Vincent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
How
Yeah.
you roll.
This is like you're taking the government funds.
These are my
You're
people.
taking the government funds type of behavior.
What's up, Las Giddy? What's up, Las Giddy? My people out there, man.
This year, using some this is like, okay, all of the food parcels are going to get to Vincent's house now.
Maureen Mashwai says, why are all the series so brief? Is there a limitation? Akeem, yeah.
No, I think that it's not about why they're so brief, or it's the order of the, it's the series order, and then the idea is that to whet your appetite, let's hopefully bring you back for more. And it's a good segue to say congrats to CAGS again, Queen Sono Part 2 coming up. So there you go. So you get another dose, and so I think that's it. But I wanted to just say about the other question is that the key thing that we all forget about is the story. Whenever I have the opportunity to teach people, I always just tell them, tell the story right. Tell the story. And if you tell the story right, the same way a friend of mine always says, we can all watch soccer from different parts of the world, but we all understand X, Y, Z. For me, it's the same thing with story. And that's always been my obsession, is how do you tell the story in such a way that it resonates for your neighbor and for someone else in another part of the world? And I think Matwetwe is a great example of what CAGS is saying, and I'm sure, Busi, you'll agree. And even you, Vincent, it's like, tell the story. Yeah. Tell the story. I always find the people who obsess a lot about, well, is it this, is it that? I was like, if you obsess as much as the story as we do, which is, that's your entire obsession. I'm only interested in the story. And that's why conversations can happen in a way that makes sense, because if we all agree that it's the story, that's the thing that's leading us. Yeah. Then that's the light. That's the light. And then the rest of it is, oh, wow, it resonates here, or it resonates over there. But it starts with the story. Like, what is the story, and how well are you telling that story?
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasize, guys, the fact that, and Akin, we've had this discussion between me and you. In fact, we had it 2 days ago again, how important to keep telling stories for yourself, not for Netflix, just so that you acquire, you have a show reel, you have, when people are looking for stuff you've done, you've got something. So to do the hours, it's important for young filmmakers, in fact, for any filmmakers for that matter, that you must just keep working. You must just keep adding work on your profile, on your show reel. Somewhere, somehow, somebody will find, or you will find somebody that you have synergy with, and you guys will work together and you'll do amazing things. Today, Akin or Kagiso might be the first one who's done a Netflix original, but tomorrow you might be the first one who's done a co-production with America with a budget that we've never seen in this country, or who is now nominated for an Oscar. So the preoccupation with the idea that I need to be on Netflix sometimes might be a little bit misdirected. I think what's important is that it's important for us to say we want to do great work to reach certain audiences, that the work that we can be proud of, and from there, things will happen. I'm a true believer that if your heart is in the right place, things will happen, and that will be reflected in your work. Yeah.
Can I also wanted to kind of also add, because you asked about the experience. I mean, I remember there was a day where I kind of was surprised or shocked or not, taken a bit of gut, because the Netflix people called me the client. They were like, you are the client. You are, when marketing came and they said, what do you think of this marketing? What do you think of these? And then you would talk about it, and it's kind of like, what, doing this, doing that. But they really wanted to impress me and my team in the things that they were trying to do, because it's a collaboration. I mean, they do call us collaborators. At the beginning of, I think the contract that you sign has a lot of collaboration and partnership kind of in it, and talking about that experience for me is something that it's now kind of my new standard, right? I'm like, if I go to a restaurant, that's good. Whenever I go to a bad restaurant, I'm going to say, but where are the serviettes? Where are the this? And then the people of that restaurant be like, but you were here last week, you weren't complaining about serviettes. And I'll say, but I know serviettes now, dog. Can I have, hand sanitizer? Let's work together here. So what I wanted to,
question, because we're not any joke.
Sorry. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that the.
So here's a question that I think it would be right for you, Kagiso. What's better? Is it a movie or a series? Because you've done both and you've had both on Netflix.
I'll go out to Akin's answer. It's what it's supposed to be. If it's a series, it's a series I want to make. If it's a movie, it's what I've got movie scripts that I'm really trying to get made. And I've got series ideas that I'm really trying to get made. I'm not, and I also am trying to get on stage, but that one seems to be taking the backseat all the time. But I wasn't that. I was saying that what would be interesting.
Stop making jokes and make your point.
I'm done with jokes. What I'm saying is with the local broadcasters, it's people that I want to work with. I'm pitching to local broadcasters all the time. But I think that now we've come to a point where as much as us as creatives have to step up, I feel like everybody, the whole industry has to step up. Because if you're gonna say Netflix is here and they're not the be all and end all, then we have to remember, we all have to step, the whole industry has to step up. Like last week, I was looking on Twitter, and the big fight was whether Blood and Water was better than Queen Sona, and I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable, because for the first time, we're talking about shows that are not being made by local broadcasters. It was like, and as a local broadcaster, what are you thinking? You're watching that, what are you thinking? What's going on? And also the viewers themselves are going, what do I have that what is there on terrestrial television that I can't get on the streaming platform, and why am I paying so much? And I think we all have to kind of come together and huddle and treat each other with respect, look each other in the eye, and start listening and being like, yo, man, I got this thing. It's lesbian Afrikaans netball players. Let's go. They're also vampires. Are you in? And people have to be kind of open-minded. I'm not saying that's what I'm making, by the way. I'm just saying that we gotta just be more adventurous.
We hear you. I've been ignoring this question, but it keeps coming back. So let me just try to read it out. Ratimu Fukeng and many other people have been asking this question. Hi, my question is, do our artists get royalties for their work, and are they compensated in the long term on this Netflix commissioned work? Busi, do you want to take, you've sort of explained it earlier on in terms of how commission work, but I think this one is particular to actors. Do you want to share some knowledge there?
Yeah, look, with actors, I think with all of us, a commission is a commission, which means whoever's paying for it owns it. But I think the best thing, especially with actors, is making sure you have agents who have your back, because at the end of the day, the negotiation doesn't even come from the producers, it comes from your agent who's making those deals for you and on your behalf. So I always say, you know, like, yeah, you know, get a good agent, get an agent who's not just about getting a commission, but is actually there to work for you and has your best interest. And then you negotiate. And with it, and like anything, I think you have to do your homework. I know I do my homework. You know, you kind of see what's out there on the market. You talk to people, you talk to other people. Hey, what are you getting? What's going on? So that you can figure out how to negotiate. And I think a lot of times, Black creators, we've kind of been working in isolation. And that's one lesson I learned a long time ago, is that if you're in your little corner, you're gonna get screwed. So you really need to have a community of people that you can call, or I can say, yo, Akin, what's up? What do I do in this situation? Or, you know, so you see, Vincent can call me and be like, hey, Gail, how do I figure this out? And if I help you get a better deal, it helps me anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because the more we accept crappy deals, it just makes it harder for the next person. So do your homework and have good representation.
And join Saga, because Saga is also helping. I mean, all of these guilds, the South African Guild of Actors, they are trying to do as much as possible to represent the rights of the actors. Eventually, I mean, I don't know what's possible and what not with regards to royalties, but I think it's an ongoing discussion with the streamers and guilds like Saga around the world. So, you know, and I think, yeah, the more people join Saga, the more it can have power to negotiate on people, you know, on the industry's behalf, or at least on actors' behalf.
I know that it's a very touchy subject, that one, but also, if just I have to add, what we are trying to do now at Kuopa, because, you know, our project is different because it's an independent production, we did it with our own money. What we are trying to do is to have a back end deal with our actors so that they own part of the project. And I think this is where the industry is heading to. And I think it's only fair that we should head that way. And of course, you know, the input is equal, the output kind of situation. But I think, you know, it's important we move to sort of a communal approach in doing these sort of things. Because we are all in this together. We must also remember that, you know, some of these systems were set up before we even came into the picture. So we need to somehow adapt these systems so that they fit to our situation and how we desire to see the future of our industry. And I think it's only fair that we all know that, you know, Lodi and Vincent might have done Jovijo, but actually it's not just Lodi and Vincent's ideas that are in Jovijo. We must acknowledge other people, and not only acknowledge them when we win awards and say thank you to the so-and-so, but also acknowledge them financially and otherwise. And I think if the industry, and I don't know with regards to Netflix or any other broadcasters, but to us personally as Kuopa, what we are looking for is to sort of formulate a way where we are into this together and we move as one, because we've realized the value of what everyone brings into the project. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vincent,
I just wanted to add a small thing. I think that's a really good point, because it's not just about being hired. You know, I remember when I was first starting out as a writer, I'd be hired for gigs, and then I would write an amazing story. It would win producers all these awards and blah, 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 and money, and I got zero, you know, 0%. And then I realized at the end of the day, you have to think of yourself as a creative, but also as a valuable business asset, you know. And I got to a point where I said, I don't do writing gigs as a writer. You know, if it's my creation, then I'm a producer as well, you know. And so I became, which is really how it should be, right? That you're bringing all of your intellectual property to the table. So that really deserves more than just being an employee on a job. And I think in America, they're doing that as well. You're seeing actors, like big actors, coming on as producers of shows now that they're acting in. And so, yeah, you have to sort of think about yourself as a business, and how do you make sure that your value is acknowledged?
Yeah.
Sorry, Akin.
Yeah, no,
did you want to say something?
Well, I was just saying it's also what you attach to that value. So I mean, a conversation like this is helpful, but you can see everyone is asking, like, how do I, and for me, it's about creating your net worth. So understanding what your power is and what energy you can attract to build that vision. And then what I feel like, what I would be interested in doing, and I've thought about this to your point, is that sharing your knowledge of not just the success, but the failure. Because the failure allows you to understand what others have done before you, and then how you can, put your path, plot your path. I remember seeing a tweet one day. This guy, it was the day festival. There was a festival announcement. Sundance had announced whoever was in that year, and this person, who I don't know who this filmmaker is, but he tweeted this thing, is like, I just want to shout out all those people who weren't selected this year, that just know that it's okay. You'll be, and then he encouraged filmmakers to tweet out, how many times have you been rejected? And I found that, and then you big names were saying, hey, I was rejected by Sundance 6 times. I was rejected by Sundance 10 times. And I was like, that kind of openness allows you to understand, and it's the only way we can try and impart to people. It's a journey, and you have to commit to the journey. And yes, you can see us all here, but if we started showing you our scars and the stuff, that's the journey that's the journey. And so on that point, I think in creating value, it's also about understanding what your energy is and who you can attract to yourself, so that so that the value becomes, how will I put it? You don't even have to sell yourself. It's like, I think what you guys have shared here is like, you get in the room, as Boosie, you said, you get in the room and you're like, oh, I don't have, you're really interested in it's because you've created a value that somebody else goes, hey, come and how do we work together? So that's the one thing. That's the one thing I feel like, that's the one thing, I don't know what the format is, but that's the one thing I'm really interested in doing, because I think it will hopefully inspire people, and also just say, yo, it's hard. It's hard, but it's also rewarding at different points, and you can gauge what your reward is. And sorry, last point on this. They always ask filmmakers to list the top 10 films of the year, top 10 films of the decade. And there was an interesting one last year where the guy said, you know what? I had a bad year. 2 projects I thought I was going to do didn't happen. So I didn't really watch any films this year. And he mentioned 1 or 2 things. And I just thought that was so refreshing, because that's the reality of most of us. It's not, you can see this show. Like Kahiso said, there's a film you want to pitch and there's these other things. It's a life of filmmaking. It's a life of storytelling that encompasses joy and a lot of pain. And you have to find a way that they work together. And then these questions, how do I get to here? Or how do I build value? It starts with yourself.
Oh, Akin Rumula. Hey, dropping mics, son.
Mutel was asking a question. Does Netflix Africa Originals also incorporate the commissioning of non-fiction content? And if so, who are the relevant people at Netflix to engage on this matter? The short answer, Mutel, is yes, they do. I haven't seen a lot from the continent, in Africa, but I've seen non-fiction stuff. But I would suggest that, try and speak to some distributors and see if they can get. I don't think it's part, and I'm saying this under correction, I don't think it's part of their strategy at the moment to do local, rather documentaries in the continent. It looks like Netflix at the moment is still sort of trying to figure out the market in the continent. And you can see how careful they are in how they do things, which is why part of their strategy, it looks like, is that if they really like you, they come after you, they contact you. But of course, there's nothing stopping you from going to them. And that's my 2 cents of knowledge. But however, like I said earlier on, please Google their emails, send them an emails. They probably won't answer you immediately, but keep pushing. Try your luck, man. Be a hustle. That's basically just how this industry works, And don't be shy to get those rejections. It's part of it. Don't be shy if Dorothy or Ben are angry at you. It's part of their job. That's their industry. So you just have to keep pushing. And Busisiwe, I think I have another question for you. Let me see if I haven't lost. In the meantime, how excited are you about Jiva?
So excited.
Yeah.
So,
I have a question
and
for
what? Sorry?
Can you repeat that?
I'm saying I had a question for you, Busisiwe, and I've lost it. But in the meantime, how excited are you feeling about?
Oh, no, look, I'm super, super, super excited. I can't wait for the world to see it. I can't wait for us to finish shooting it. I was telling those people, like, and it's weird because it feels like, we're all independent filmmakers, we've got our own companies, but like, for me personally, like, there's kind of like warm, fuzzy feelings that I feel for each of these guys, because it feels like there's something sort of pioneering that we're doing. We're kind of part of this like club, and I hope that this club is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and have new voices join it. But, sort of being like the first to like open up a door, it comes with responsibility, but also great honor for me. Like, I don't think I'm the best storyteller in the world. I think there's so many other storytellers out there who are yet to be discovered, who are going to just blow us away and make us cry and all that stuff and make us reevaluate what it means to be human. And if I can play a small role on opening that door for other people to come in, it's such an honor. And so I feel that Queen Sono Kafiso did that, and thank you. And he's passed the baton to Nosipo, and she's now passing the baton to me, and then I'll be passing it to Akin. So it's like Wakanda forever.
I just wanna do a follow-up to what you're saying, because I think, because I do a lot of talks to young people at university or colleges, and this I feel very strongly about. Guys, when you are not on Netflix, and this is to filmmakers as well, when you are not on Netflix, it doesn't mean you're the lesser filmmaker, or of course it's a prestigious platform because of its reach, but the world is big. There's other opportunities out there. So these might be the guys for now, but I think it's important that we realize that there's more opportunities coming, and we need to work towards those opportunities. And I need to stress this because it's important. You might be the guys, but there's also another train that's coming, and that train might be a bullet train, and might be quicker, might have a better budget, and so on. Or it might not even have a budget, but it might produce great work that eventually win an Oscar. It's important in our mindset to keep that in the space, especially to young people, because some people might be thinking, hey, now I'm getting up on Netflix, and they've rejected me. If I have to tell the story of Lorien, Mahan, and I, when we started, nobody really wanted to be. In fact, we tried all these broadcasters, and they all said no, and they rejected. And fast forward to 3 years ago, the show did the biggest ratings on TV. The show picked up few more awards than most other shows that were picked. So in life, it's important to understand that we all have different journeys. And of course,
the show is on Netflix. And the show is on Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, now it's on Netflix.
I keep forgetting that.
I know.
Vince,
you are amazing. Vince, you are amazing. You see how Vince waited at the end to be like, yeah, but we heard them, but who's the most amazing?
Yeah.
But I wanted to add something to, I think this is touching on what Busia said and what Akin said, which is for me extremely important, which I find missing a lot, is that, like, and I mean, I knew you, Vince, you are a soccer player, a soccer lover, and you know a lot about soccer. You know who's buying who, you know what Bayern Munich is doing every month, You know everything about soccer. But when
And
it comes to this,
it was Everton.
there you go. And, but when it comes to this thing, as Tony Soprano would say, this thing of ours, I feel like people don't know enough. I feel like all of the literature that's available, there's, I mean, trades every day. Like, you know, the people are writing about this business every day. How much, like you, the whole time when you are there, you've been saying, just Google it, because it's information that's there. Like, I feel like to know how to eventually sell to, whether it's Netflix, whether it's HBO, whatever, where you're going to speak to the guy who made Parasite or, you know, Spike Lee, I feel like you need to know this business. You need to know, like, that the different genres, how much people are paying for what's happening in the world, you know? I would say to everybody here that's watching this thing, that's what you got to do, man. And then the next time this talk happens, it'll even be more elevated because you will know so much that the question, it'll be interesting. We'll be sharing information in a grander way than just us saying, yeah, no, you must call, you must shout out in the sky and Netflix will hear you. Because that's not how it works. You know, it's all of these people here, they've done quite a bit of work in terms of researching how their thing works, you know, and that's how they got to where they are, you know, like that's all I can say is that the information is there. Internet is, I mean, come on, it's not, there's people who call their computers a Facebook machine, I think, because that's what they use it for. Use it for cooler things, man.
We are left 2 minutes or so. Akeem, do you want to have your parting shot?
I just want to say I'm so fortunate to be alive at this moment in time with this amount of energy. Salute to the team at Netflix, Kags, Busi, Nozipo, and all those who are bringing a kaleidoscope of images. Vincent, the fact that your show is on, the fact that I can watch films from Africa that, for the most part, again, because of distribution, you don't see these films, but they're on this particular platform. I just say thank you to you all, and you're all an inspiration to me.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. And shout out to Netflix as well, because we don't give them enough credit for what they've done. I think it's a beautiful thing to have such a powerful distributing partner who is interested in exploring stuff in the continent. Yeah, I saw Busia, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think shout out to Dorothy, man. You know, she's a Kenyan woman, extraordinaire, powerhouse, who's heading up the creative on the continent. And I don't think we could have gotten a better sort of creative partner in her at Netflix. And she's come with a very sort of deliberate vision of showcasing African stories. And so it feels like I've got a partner in crime, a sister in crime. And there's some things that are just, we get it, you know, we get it because we're all African. And I love that. Like, you know, I love having that kind of collaboration. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds, and let's do this.
Lovely. And to those guys who might not make it into the Netflix slate, most people are always struggling how to do films. Like we say, always try and Google this stuff. But one of the most common financial model is try and get somebody who has 10% of your budget, which sometimes could be the SABC or ETV or Showmax, and then that gives you access to the DTI rebate, which they'll probably pay something like 35% to 50% of your total budget. And then you can go and get other partners who can co-produce with you. And I believe that Netflix is also looking into co-productions, but you also have other platforms like Canal Plus, which is really interested in making those co-productions with other streaming services. But you can look at, the best way to do it, guys, is that always go and watch the credit of the films, and you'll see the partners that are involved, and then you can approach those people. So while we are celebrating that Netflix is here, the struggle still continues. Try and make those independent projects, because sometimes your kind of films might not feel might not fit the strategy of a certain broadcaster or the streaming services, but it might be something that you want to tell. And independent is still key. So that's my parting shot. And thank you so much, Kafiso Lidika. Well done, man. And congratulations on your second season. How's the writing?
It's good. I mean, it's unbelievable because you can't leave your house. You got to write. This feels like the writing room because that's how it looks every day. I sit here from 10:30 till 5 o'clock spitting at the screen, as we say.
Akino Motoso, thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you.
And I'm wishing you all the best. Enjoy Lagos. Last time I was in Lagos with you, you were very kind to me. You showed me around, but then you disappeared. But we shall not talk about it. Looking forward to seeing you. And it's important. When I was talking to Des yesterday, and we're talking about how you should be on the show, and I think we don't acknowledge the struggle that Black women in particular are going through in this industry, the discrimination and many other finer little things that are not overt that makes the struggle for you guys a little bit more difficult than it would be for Vincent or Akeem or Kafiso Lidika and so on. So big up to you, my sister.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Nice one, Busi.
Love you guys.
Nice one, Akin.
Nice one.
Cool.
Cool.
Thank you guys. Osmic, do your thing.
Riding the breeze.